My boss stole my project and presented it as his own. At the company party, I noticed an important detail in his presentation. When I joined the tech firm Apex Solutions, I had big dreams and a lot of optimism. That changed yesterday at our quarterly company showcase when my direct supervisor, Marcus, presented my 6 months of work as his own, with the CEO and entire executive team nodding along in approval. What he didn't notice was that I was standing in the back of the room, watching him scroll through slides containing my personal watermark hidden in the corner of each design mock-up. A small detail that would prove to be his undoing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Devin, a 28-year-old UI/UX designer who landed what I thought was my dream job at Apex Solutions last year. The company develops software for healthcare providers, and I was excited to work on something that actually mattered. My background is in design, but I've always had a knack for understanding user psychology and workflow efficiency. When I first met Marcus during my interview, he seemed impressed by my portfolio and ideas. He made all the right promises about mentorship and growth opportunities. The first few months were exactly what I'd hoped for. I was assigned to a team working on updating one of their flagship products, a patient management system used by thousands of hospitals nationwide. It wasn't groundbreaking work, but it gave me a chance to learn the company's systems and prove myself. Everything changed 4 months in when there was a company-wide call for innovation projects. The CEO, Christine, announced that they were looking for ideas to revolutionize their product line, and employees were encouraged to submit proposals. The winning project would receive significant resources and the team lead would present at the annual industry conference. I had been thinking about an idea for months, a completely redesigned clinician dashboard that would use AI to predict patient needs and streamline workflows. I spent 2 weeks perfecting my proposal, working late into the night, even pulling a couple of all-nighters. When the deadline came, I submitted my proposal and waited. A week later, Marcus called me into his office. He sat behind his desk with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Devin, I wanted to talk to you about your proposal," he said, tapping his fingers on a printed copy of my submission. "It's really impressive work." "Thank you," I replied, trying to contain my excitement. "I really believe it could make a difference for our clients." "I agree completely. That's why I'm assigning you to develop it further." My heart skipped. This was exactly what I'd hoped for. "But," Marcus continued, "we'll need to make some adjustments to the team structure. I'll be taking the lead on this project officially, with you handling the design implementation under my direction. This is too important for someone at your experience level to head up." The excitement drained from me. "But it's my concept, I've already mapped out the entire development pathway." Marcus's smile tightened. "That's how things work here, Devin. You're still new. You need guidance. This will be good for your growth, working closely with me on this. Trust me." I left his office feeling hollow. That night, I called my best friend Riley to vent. "That's straight up theft," Riley said after hearing the story. "You need to go over his head." "And say what?" "I'm the new guy. Marcus has been there for 7 years. It would be career suicide." "Then document everything. Make sure you have proof this was your idea when it succeeds." That advice stuck with me. The next day, I began discreetly documenting my work. I created a small personal watermark, my initials in a tiny, almost invisible pattern, and added it to the corner of every mock-up and design file. I also kept detailed logs of all my work and backed up everything to my personal cloud storage. For the next 6 months, I worked tirelessly on my project. Marcus would check in occasionally, giving vague feedback and taking credit for my ideas in team meetings. When I'd suggest improvements, he'd initially shoot them down, only to return days later presenting the same ideas as his own. It was maddening, but I kept my head down and continued documenting everything. 2 weeks before the quarterly showcase, Marcus told me he would be presenting our progress to the executive team. "I should be there too," I said. "I can explain the technical aspects of the design." "Not necessary," Marcus replied dismissively. "This is high-level stuff. I need to frame it properly for the executives. Just make sure all the materials are ready by Friday." I spent the next 10 days perfecting everything. Each slide, each mock-up, each demonstration was flawless, and each contained my hidden watermark. When I handed everything over to Marcus, he barely looked at it. He was already practicing his presentation, using phrases and explanations I had written as if they were his own. The day of the showcase arrived. I wasn't officially invited, but I knew these presentations were technically open to all employees. I slipped into the back of the conference room and found a seat just as Christine was introducing Marcus. "Marcus has been leading a groundbreaking project that could revolutionize our product lineup," she announced proudly. We're excited to see what he's developed. Marcus walked to the front with confidence. Thank you, Christine. For the past 6 months, I've been developing a new approach to our clinician dashboard. I sat in stunned silence as Marcus presented my work word for word. He used my examples, my user stories, even my personal anecdotes about shadowing nurses to understand their workflow challenges. The executives were clearly impressed, nodding and taking notes. Then came the moment that changed everything. As Marcus clicked through a series of interface mockups, the CFO raised his hand. Marcus, what's that pattern in the corner of these screens? Is that a new branding element? Time seemed to slow down. Marcus squinted at the screen, clearly seeing my watermark for the first time. That's just a design element we're testing. It probably won't be in the final version. The presentation continued, but Marcus looked rattled. He kept glancing at the corner of each slide, suddenly aware of my mark on everything he was claiming as his own. After the presentation, as everyone was mingling and congratulating Marcus, Christine approached him. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I saw her pointing to her laptop screen, then to the corner where my watermark was visible. Marcus's face went pale. I slipped out before I could be noticed, heart pounding. Back at my desk, I tried to focus on my regular work, but couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. Had Christine recognized something was off? Would Marcus find a way to twist this too? An hour later, my phone buzzed with an email notification. From Christine's executive assistant, meeting request, Christine Lee, Marcus Porter, and Devin Mitchell. Today, 4:30 p.m., CEO's office. This was it. Either I was about to be fired for the watermarks, or something else was happening. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of anxious anticipation, trying to prepare what I would say if given the chance. At 4:25, I walked to Christine's office. Her assistant nodded for me to go in. Inside, Christine sat behind her desk with a serious expression. Marcus was already there, looking uncomfortable. Devin, thank you for joining us, Christine said, gesturing for me to sit. I wanted to discuss the presentation from this morning. Marcus jumped in. Before we start, I want to clarify that Devin has been a valuable member of my team on this project. The design elements he's contributed have been helpful. Christine held up her hand, stopping him. Marcus, please. She turned to me. Devin, I noticed something interesting in the design files today. A pattern that, when examined closely, appears to be your initials. Can you explain that? This was my moment. I took a deep breath. Those are my watermarks. I put them there because this entire project, from the initial concept to every detail presented today, was my work. I submitted the original proposal under my name. I have documentation showing my development process for the past 6 months, including emails where I sent these exact materials to Marcus. Marcus's face flushed red. That's ridiculous. I've been guiding this project from the start. Devin is trying to take credit for team efforts. I looked him directly in the eyes. Then explain why you didn't notice the watermarks until they were pointed out today, or why the initial project proposal in the company database has metadata showing I created it, not you. Christine raised her eyebrows. Is that true? I can prove everything, I said, pulling out my phone. I have the original files, development logs, and emails documenting the entire process. What followed was 30 minutes of the most excruciating professional conversation I've ever experienced. I showed Christine my evidence while Marcus alternated between denial and attempting to minimize my contributions. As the reality became clear, his arguments grew weaker. Finally, Christine held up her hand again. I've heard enough. Marcus, we'll continue this discussion privately. Devin, thank you for bringing this to my attention. Please send all your documentation to HR and my office. We take intellectual ownership very seriously at Apex. As I stood to leave, Christine added, and Devin? The project is brilliant. Truly innovative work. The validation I'd been waiting for washed over me, but it was mixed with anxiety about what would happen next. I left the office that day not knowing if I'd just saved my career or destroyed it by challenging a senior manager. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying the meeting in my head and wondering what the fallout would be. What if Marcus convinced Christine I was the problem? What if I was labeled a troublemaker? The tech industry is smaller than people think, reputations matter. The next morning, I dragged myself to the office, preparing for the worst. As I approached my desk, I noticed people glancing my way and whispering. Word had spread quickly. My stomach dropped, until Riley from marketing gave me a thumbs up as I passed her desk. At 9:30, I received another email from Christine's assistant, meeting with Christine Lee and Tamara Williams, Head of Product, 10 a.m., Conference Room B. No mention of Marcus. I wasn't sure if that was good or bad. When I entered the conference room, Christine and Tamara were already there, reviewing documents. They both looked up and smiled. "Devin, thank you for coming," Christine began. "After our conversation yesterday, I spoke with HR and reviewed all the evidence you provided. I also had some additional conversations with team members." She paused, and I braced myself. "I want to apologize on behalf of Apex. What happened with your project was unacceptable and against everything we stand for as a company." I almost couldn't process what I was hearing. "Marcus is no longer with the company," she continued. "His actions violated our code of conduct and ethics policy." I blinked in surprise. "He's gone? Already?" Tamara nodded. "When confronted with the full evidence, he admitted to taking credit for your work. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior, regardless of seniority." Christine leaned forward. "Which brings us to why we wanted to meet with you today. We'd like you to take over as project lead. Your concept has tremendous potential, and no one understands it better than you." The rest of the meeting was a blur of details about my new role, increased compensation, and a team that would be assigned to help me develop the project. I left the conference room in a daze, barely able to believe how quickly everything had changed. When I returned to my desk, I had an email from Tamara outlining my new responsibilities and copying several department heads to inform them of my new role. It was official, my project was actually my project now. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. I was given a small team to work with and direct access to the product managers and developers I needed. People who had previously ignored me in meetings were now asking for my input and treating me with respect. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Some of Marcus's allies in the company were cold toward me, suggesting I had somehow orchestrated his downfall. Others seemed to think I had taken a risk they wouldn't have had the courage to take. The attention was uncomfortable at times, but I focused on the work. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I was scheduled to present our progress to the executive team, this time as the official project lead. The night before, I removed all the watermarks from my files. I didn't need them anymore. The presentation went perfectly. Standing where Marcus had stood, I explained my vision clearly and confidently. The questions from the executives were thoughtful and engaged. Christine smiled proudly from her seat. As I concluded, the room broke into applause. Afterward, the CTO approached me. "Fantastic work, Devin." Christine told me what happened with Marcus. "Between you and me, he's done this before, but previous employees didn't have your foresight to document everything. You've got a bright future here." That evening, as I packed up to leave, I found a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a handwritten note from Christine. "Integrity and talent are a powerful combination. Looking forward to seeing where you take this. CL." I sat at my desk for a long time, reflecting on everything that had happened. The vindication was sweet, but what meant more was that my work was finally being recognized for what it was, mine. Update, 1 month later. It's been a month since I took over as project lead, and I wanted to share how things have been going. First, thank you all for the supportive comments and messages. It means a lot to know I'm not alone in experiencing workplace theft, and many of you shared similar stories that helped me process everything. The project is progressing better than I could have hoped. My team is fantastic, talented people who are genuinely excited about what we're building. We've already completed the first functional prototype, and early testing with actual clinicians has been overwhelmingly positive. I've learned that leadership is a whole different skill set than design. There have been plenty of challenges, conflicting priorities, resource limitations, and the occasional disagreement within the team. But I'm growing into the role more each day, and Tamara has been an amazing mentor, providing guidance without micromanaging. Something interesting happened last week. I was contacted by someone at Rive Tech, a competitor of Apex. After some small talk, they mentioned they'd heard about my situation with Marcus and wanted to discuss potential opportunities. When I asked how they knew about internal Apex matters, they were vague but mentioned that Marcus had been interviewing with them. I politely declined any further conversation and immediately informed Christine about the contact. She thanked me for my transparency and revealed something I hadn't known. Marcus had apparently been interviewing at several companies while claiming my work as his own accomplishments. She had already received calls from 2 other CEOs asking about him after his references didn't check out. "Your watermarks didn't just save your project here," she told me. "They likely prevented him from continuing this behavior elsewhere." That conversation gave me a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. This wasn't just about my project anymore, it was about professional integrity across the industry. On the personal side, my confidence has grown tremendously. I'm speaking up more in meetings, challenging assumptions when necessary, and learning to trust my instincts. The experience with Marcus taught me that staying quiet doesn't serve anyone, not me, not the company, and not the patients who will ultimately use our software. I've also been thinking about all your comments suggesting I add visible credits to my work. I've taken a different approach. I've instituted a new practice within my team of documenting everyone's contributions transparently, ensuring that credit is properly attributed in our internal documents. It's created a culture of trust that's making our work even better. Thank you again for all your support. I'll update again when we reach our next milestone. Update, 6 months later. I can't believe it's been half a year since everything went down with Marcus. So much has happened that I wanted to share with all of you who supported me through this journey. Our project, now officially named Foresight, has moved from prototype to beta testing in 3 regional hospital systems. The feedback has been incredible. Nurses report saving an average of 42 minutes per shift, and physicians are identifying critical patient issues earlier, thanks to the predictive algorithms we developed. Real people are benefiting from what started as an idea I wasn't sure would ever see the light of day. Last month, I presented Foresight at the Healthcare Innovation Conference, the same conference Marcus had been so eager to speak at. Standing on that stage, explaining my vision to a room of industry leaders, was surreal. After my presentation, I was approached by so many people wanting to discuss implementation at their facilities. One chief medical officer told me, "This is what we've been waiting for in healthcare tech, something designed by someone who actually understands our workflows." The irony isn't lost on me. If Marcus hadn't tried to steal my work, I might never have had the opportunity to step into this leadership role so quickly. His deception accelerated my career in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Speaking of Marcus, I heard through the industry grapevine that he struggled to find another position at his previous level. Apparently, word spread about what happened at Apex. I don't wish him ill, but I believe in accountability, and I'm glad the industry has some informal safeguards against this kind of behavior. There's been another unexpected development at Apex. Christine has created a new innovation pipeline that allows junior team members to submit ideas directly to an evaluation committee, bypassing the traditional management layers that allowed my situation to happen in the first place. She cited my experience as the catalyst for this change, and 3 new projects from junior staff have already been approved for development. The most meaningful change, though, has been in how I view myself professionally. Before this happened, I often downplayed my abilities, thinking I needed years more experience before my ideas would be taken seriously. Now I understand that good ideas can come from anywhere, and advocating for yourself isn't arrogance, it's necessary. Many of you asked in the comments if I was planning to leave Apex after how they initially allowed this to happen. I've thought about it, and I've had several attractive offers. But I've decided to stay, at least for now. Christine and the executive team didn't just fix the situation, they created systematic changes to prevent it from happening to others. That shows integrity that's rare in corporate environments. Also, I'm being transparent here, they gave me a substantial promotion, a significant raise, and equity in the company. Sometimes proper recognition comes with proper compensation. Oh, and remember the watermarks? I gave a presentation to the entire company about my experience, and now pulling a Devon has become company slang for cleverly protecting your intellectual property. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it's better than the alternative. Thank you all again for your support through this journey. I read every comment, and your collective wisdom helped me navigate some difficult decisions. I'll post another update after Foresight's full launch next quarter. Update, 1 year later. Today marks exactly 1 year since the day Marcus presented my work as his own, and what a year it's been. I'm writing this update from my hotel room in San Francisco, where tomorrow I'll be accepting the Healthcare Technology Innovation Award for Foresight. Our system is now implemented in over 40 hospital systems nationwide, with international expansion planned for next quarter. The success of the product has exceeded everyone's expectations, including mine. We've documented real improvements in patient outcomes, early intervention metrics are up 26%, and workflow efficiency has improved across all implementation sites. What means the most to me are the stories from the healthcare workers using our system, like the ER nurse who told me Foresight helped her identify sepsis in a patient 30 minutes earlier than she might have otherwise, potentially saving the patient's life. Professionally, my trajectory at Apex has been transformed. 6 months ago, I was promoted to Director of Product Innovation, leading a team of 15 talented designers and engineers. Christine has become something of a mentor to me, regularly involving me in strategic discussions about the company's future. Last week, she told me that Foresight is projected to become the company's highest revenue product within the next 2 years. There have been challenges, of course. The expanded responsibility means longer hours and difficult decisions. I've had to learn quickly about budgeting, resource allocation, and the politics of enterprise sales. I've made mistakes, like underestimating the training needs for smaller hospitals or pushing too hard for features that weren't yet technically feasible. But each mistake has been a valuable lesson. Something unexpected happened 3 months ago. I received a LinkedIn message from Marcus. My heart raced when I saw his name, and I hesitated before opening it. The message was brief but direct. Devin, I've been following the success of Foresight. The recognition is well deserved. What I did was inexcusable. No justifications or excuses. Just wanted to say I'm sorry for trying to take credit for your brilliant work. Congratulations on everything you've achieved. Marcus. I didn't respond immediately. Part of me questioned his sincerity, wondering if this was strategic career rehabilitation on his part. But after reflection, I decided to take the apology at face value. I replied simply, Marcus, thank you for the apology. It means more than you might think. I hope you're doing well. Devin. He responded with a few details about his life. He's working at a smaller company now, in an individual contributor role rather than management. He mentioned he's been doing some serious reflection on his actions. We haven't communicated since, but the exchange gave me an unexpected sense of closure. On a personal note, the confidence I've gained from this experience has spilled into other areas of my life. I've started mentoring young designers from underrepresented backgrounds, sharing my story as an example of why documenting and standing up for your work matters. I've also become more assertive in my personal relationships, setting clearer boundaries and expressing my needs more directly. I think often about the many comments suggesting I was lucky that Christine and Apex handled the situation the right way. You were all correct. Many companies would have swept it under the rug or even retaliated against me for speaking up. I recognize my privilege in working for an organization that ultimately valued truth and integrity. Not everyone has that safety net. That realization has inspired me to work with HR to establish a formal intellectual property protection policy at Apex, creating clear guidelines for attribution and idea ownership. We've implemented anonymous reporting channels for employees who believe their work is being misappropriated, and mandatory ethics training for all management staff. As I prepare for tomorrow's award ceremony, I've been reflecting on that moment a year ago when I sat in the back of the room, watching someone else present my work. The anger and helplessness I felt then has transformed into something powerful, the knowledge that I have both the creativity to develop valuable ideas and the courage to ensure they're recognized as mine. To anyone reading this who might be facing a similar situation, document everything, know your worth, and find the courage to speak up. Your ideas matter. Your work matters. And you deserve recognition for both. Thank you all for being part of this journey. Your support and advice helped me navigate one of the most challenging professional experiences of my life. I'll post a final update after tomorrow's ceremony with pictures of the award that almost never had my name on it. Final update, the ceremony and beyond. The award ceremony was everything I could have hoped for and more. Walking onto that stage to accept the Healthcare Technology Innovation Award for Foresight was a moment I'll never forget. The presenter read a brief description of the project's impact, noting how it had fundamentally transformed clinical workflows and decision-making processes in dozens of hospital systems nationwide. Hearing my work described in those terms, in front of hundreds of industry leaders, was validating in a way I can hardly describe. What made the moment even more special was that Christine and Tamara had flown in to support me. After I accepted the award, Christine took me aside and said something that brought tears to my eyes. "This is exactly as it should be, your vision, your recognition. I'm sorry we almost let someone steal this moment from you." During the reception afterward, I had countless conversations with healthcare executives and technology leaders interested in Foresight. One chief nursing officer told me she had been following the project since its initial announcement and was impressed by how it addressed problems other systems ignored. "You clearly spent time understanding what clinicians actually need, not what tech people think they need," she said. If Marcus had successfully claimed my work as his own, he would have been standing on that stage. He would have received those compliments. He would have had those career-changing conversations. The thought is still sobering. The morning after the ceremony, I had breakfast with Christine before our flights home. She shared something she hadn't told me before. After the incident with Marcus, she had launched a comprehensive review of management practices throughout Apex. They discovered 2 other similar cases where managers had taken credit for their direct reports' work, though none as egregious as what happened to me. Those managers were put on performance improvement plans and required to undergo ethics training. "Your situation highlighted a cultural problem we needed to address," Christine explained. "The changes we've implemented aren't just about protecting individual contributions, they're about creating an environment where innovation can truly flourish, regardless of someone's title or tenure. When I returned to the office, my team had decorated my desk with streamers and a homemade sign reading Award-winning Innovator. They presented me with a card signed by everyone involved in the Foresight project. Many had written personal notes about how working on the project had impacted their careers and how my leadership had made a difference. I may have teared up a little, a lot. The most meaningful note came from Priya, a junior designer who joined my team 6 months ago. She wrote, "Watching you receive proper credit for your work gives me hope for my own future in this industry. Thank you for showing us that integrity and talent do eventually win." As for what's next, Apex has approved an expanded development budget for Foresight 2.0, which will incorporate machine learning to make the predictive analytics even more powerful. I've been given the freedom to build out my team and direction to think even bigger for the next iteration. On a personal level, I've been invited to give a keynote at next year's Healthcare Technology Conference about innovation and ethical leadership, a speaking opportunity that would have been unimaginable to me a year ago. I've also been reflecting on what this entire experience has taught me. Beyond the obvious lessons about documentation and standing up for yourself, I've learned something deeper about the human capacity for both deception and redemption. Marcus did something objectively wrong, but his eventual acknowledgement showed at least some growth. The executives who initially allowed my work to be misattributed became champions for systemic change once the truth was revealed. People are complicated. Organizations are complicated. But through it all, the work itself, the ideas, the innovation, the impact, that's what ultimately matters. Creating something meaningful, something that helps people, is the greatest reward. To everyone reading this who might be facing their own version of what I went through, keep creating. Document your contributions. Build allies. And when necessary, find the courage to speak up. Your work matters. Your ideas matter. And you deserve recognition for both. Thank you all for following my journey from that devastating day in the conference room to the award stage. Your support, advice, and encouragement helped me navigate one of the most challenging yet ultimately rewarding years of my professional life. Oh, and about those watermarks? I don't use them anymore. I don't need to. But occasionally, when I'm working on something particularly important, I'll still add my initials in a tiny corner, not because I'm worried about theft, but as a personal reminder of how far I've come and the power of standing up for my work. The award now sits on my desk, not as a trophy, but as a daily reminder that good ideas deserve to be protected, developed, and recognized. And that sometimes, justice does prevail.